Hi, everyone, and welcome to NEDA's Parent, Family, and Friends Network Google Hangout series. Today, we're going to be talking about athletics and eating disorders, what professionals need to know in the fitness community. So we're really thrilled today. I'm Claire Misko. I'm the Director of Programs for the National Eating Disorders Association, and really thrilled today to welcome two panelists who have very unique experience both in the fitness world as fitness trainers and also in the eating disorder space. So we're going to talk about the intersections there, and we're also going to talk about some really important strategies for educating fitness professionals about eating disorders and what fitness professionals can do to make a difference. First, I'm going to welcome Dallas Argueso. Dallas is a recent graduate of Cornell University. He is also a personal trainer with Blink Fitness, and he is a former Helpline volunteer here at NEDA. So welcome, Dallas. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And we also have with us Stacy Rosenfeld. Stacy is a psychologist, a certified group psychotherapist. She is also the author of a really fabulous book called Does Every Woman Have an Eating Disorder? And she herself is a certified personal trainer and a group cycling instructor. So both of our panelists today have really great experience, and we're looking forward to hearing their perspectives on this really important topic. So we're just going to get right into it here. Let's talk about the role of fitness professionals. Clearly there is generally a lack of education about eating disorders in the culture at large, and certainly in the fitness world, there's a great need for education, and fitness professionals can really be on the front lines in dealing with clients who are struggling with either full-blown eating disorders or disordered eating behaviors, people who are at high risk. So let's talk about how important education is. Stacey, let's start with you. How can education change the way information is shared and how these ideals are formed in the fitness industry?
Well, I think it's important to start with the fact that most fitness professionals just don't get education in these topics. It's just not part of the certification. I think fitness professionals need to know that there's a fine line between healthy and compulsive exercise, that there's a fine line between healthy eating and disordered eating. And if fitness professionals are going to be making recommendations about exercise and eating, I think it's important that they understand the consequences of these recommendations. For instance, it's important for them to know that for a certain percentage of people who diet, those people will go on to develop disordered eating. And then for a certain percentage of those people, they will go on to develop eating disorders. So we need to get this information out there. There are certain trends in the fitness and diet industry right now, things like paleo, CrossFit, free, which might work for some people, and I don't want to dismiss them across the board. But for those with a predisposition to eating disorders, recommending these diets or programs could be a trigger that brings on disordered behavior. So it's important for professionals to understand this. And I think it's also important for professionals to get education about the real relationship between health and weight. I think so often we hear that, or we believe that someone's weight is an indicator of that person's health. In reality, the relationship isn't so linear. There are plenty of heavy, healthy people walking around, and there are plenty of thin, unhealthy, or sedentary people walking around. But sometimes it seems that fitness professionals value weight loss or maintenance above all else. So I think that there needs to be a shift in this kind of mentality. And when I challenge fitness professionals focus on calories and weight loss as goals in their training or classes, I'm often met with the comeback of, well, it's what people want to hear. But I think it's important for us to be part of changing this conversation.
Yeah, and it's a conversation that's really everywhere right now, and it does sometimes seem like an uphill battle because we are hearing so much about obesity prevention, and there is this cultural fear fat and of larger bodies and a lot of assumptions, as you pointed out, so importantly, Stacey, that health and weight are connected in this way that is really problematic. So I think that's a very, very key issue. Um, Dallas, I want to go to you and talk about your perspective on this. How has eating disorders education and being part of NEDA and the eating disorders community influenced you as a fitness trainer?
So I would like to start by saying that it's helped me in a number of ways, not just with people that I've worked with who I felt might be predisposed to developing one, or I was concerned might currently have one, but also with the general population. I think as a personal trainer or anyone in fitness, it's very easy to be taken up by the culture of extremism. A lot of people who exercise think that more is better as far as exercise and dieting goes. Like how big a calorie deficit can you run a day? Can you do 2 workouts a day? Can you do cardio for X amount of minutes? Can you go at a certain speed? And while it's admirable to work towards certain goals, it's definitely possible to get too taken up by it and to go to unhealthy extremes. And so that's helped me, first, the eating disorder education, recognize when I feel people may be taking things to an extreme. Extremes will vary from person to person, so what might be healthy or manageable for one person is not going to be so for another person. And learning to recognize people's limits and also coach them about it in a way that makes them feel safe and not too uncomfortable, so we can have a candid conversation is really important. But also just kind of changing the culture in the gym. Eating disorder education isn't just about talking to people about your concern for them and pointing them to a professional. Excuse me. It's also about promoting body positivity and kind of changing things in the gym to more of a holistic, making goals more holistic and not talking about weight or focusing on numbers, as Stacey already mentioned. So a lot of the education has been on, I guess, wording and perspective on things in the gym, and not just on pointing people to resources, which I've found has not only helped me build stronger relationships with my clients, but also help them change their perspective on fitness so that it becomes a more sustainable, healthy part of their life.
That's such an important point, Dallas, and I think you really alluded to something that I'd like to explore a little further. In talking about this culture, of obsession with thinness and the focus on weight, and the kind of the overall messaging and environment, and how do we shift that more towards body positivity and away from this fixation on diet talk and the numbers on the scale. And Stacey, I'm hoping that you can talk a little bit more about that. What can we do to shift the language? And by language I mean how we're talking, and how trainers are talking to clients, and also the language and messaging, in the fitness environment, which I think is also important. What are we seeing? What conversations are happening?
I like to tell this story that in the last year I was interviewed by a journalist, and she was asking me about the prevalence of fat talk and diet talk among women, and she said to me, well, women aren't to engage in fat talk. What else could they talk about? And my response was anything, everything. And I think that her question was really alarming, but at the same time reflective of what does go on. I think that we are accustomed to talking a lot about food and weight issues, and I would like to see us be able to talk about anything and everything else. I write in my book about how our language around weight is really combative. We talk about boot camps and the battle of the bulge, the war on fat and obesity. And I think that this aggressive mentality impacts how we view our bodies and ourselves. We sort of internalize this aggressive language, and it becomes about self-attack. People are commonly telling me, I'm disgusting, I hate my arms, I wish I could chop off my fat. It's, very aggressive thoughts and feelings. The language that I've observed in fitness settings is largely exchange-based, and what I mean by that is that You ate, so you have to burn. You sinned, so you have to repent. It's a holiday, and you ate more today, so you have to suffer more. And I think that these repeated messages seep into our collective thinking about the role of exercise in our lives. And movement loses its inherent value and appeal and instead becomes compensatory, compulsive, and penance-based. It goes from something that should be joyful and allowing us to feel good and good about ourselves to something that we have to do and have to do to feel okay about our transgressions.
Yeah, and we hear that all the time. And I think that, that point you make about the language being combative, and we're so caught up in this self-attacking, self-critical language, which is so has become unfortunately so much a part of the fitness mentality. And Dallas, I would love to hear about you in terms of how you deal with your clients and how do you shift them away from this negative talk and the negative mentality when this kind of language comes into play in your work?
So as a personal trainer, as I said, everyone's perspective on nutrition and their own well-being varies. And so figuring out their language and what their goals are is very important. I've had a lot of clients who have come in and just said, I'm looking to get stronger. I'd like to run a race. And that's great. People are focusing more on the exercise for the sake of exercise and enjoying themselves than they are as using it as a means to an end. But there are also many, and unfortunately more in my experience, people who use exercise as a means to an end and say, well, I'd like to lose 5 to 10 pounds. Everyone's benchmark for success is different. And I've found that no matter where along the spectrum people are in fitness, there's always another goal that they'd like to attain. And sometimes those are for performance-based, and sometimes they're more aesthetically based. And so, you hear people talk about the thigh gap, which is something that's unfortunately become more popular recently. And you hear people talk a lot about social media and Instagram. That's a big part of the language in the conversation that I found has become very important as a personal trainer. More and more bodybuilders, physique competitors, fitness models are going on Instagram to promote themselves, and in so doing are preserving this ideal of what the fit person looks like. They're putting their meal prep on Instagram. They're putting exercise on Instagram, but they're doing so in a way that sexualizes fitness and very much makes it about the appearance. And so, talking to people about maybe not looking to Instagram or social media as a guide for what being fit means is really important. Another thing that I found is really important is making sure that you're using positive wording. And even if you are working towards certain goals, it is, in some instances, it is fine to work toward weight loss, but doing so in a way that is healthy and sustainable and isn't in a way that's interfering with your life or making you unhappy is also really important. So speaking to people about taking care of their bodies first, because if you take weight loss to an extreme, it's not going to be healthy, it's not going to be sustainable. And so making sure that people are eating properly for where they are currently and making sure that they're maintaining healthy social habits too has been very, very important for me. And so the language around, again, the extremism has been essential, I found.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up social media because we're hearing about that more and more at NEDA, and certainly when you're talking about a platform like Instagram, which is very image-based, it's entirely image-based, the danger of constant exposure to this stream of images that defines fitness and health in a certain way. We're hearing about that a lot. On the flip side, we're also hearing about people who are using social media in recovery. Certainly to be at a certain point in recovery where that is a safe and healthy thing for them to do. But hearing more about people who are using Instagram to post body positive messages and just sort of redefine what fitness means, and to move more towards the acceptance, self-acceptance away from that kind of critical thin ideal. which we see so much of. So, trying to create positive alternatives and use social media as a tool for change, I think, is a really important strategy, particularly for those who are in this space. Stacy, do you want to talk about that a little bit? How do you use social media? Have you talked to clients who are using it in a positive, negative way? How has that influenced or come into play in your work?
Sure. I mean, I have a handful of social media accounts that I use to promote recovery, and I think that they can be really helpful. I mean, I understand the challenges that we've talked about just now, but I also think that they can be used for good as well. I think that we can get messages out there in a very broad way that we never had access to before in terms of message delivery. So things like promoting messages, I talk a lot about getting the health at every size movement out there and challenging weight stigma, things like that, we have a much broader audience to speak to than we ever had before.
Yeah, and I think that's really a key piece of this too, in terms of thinking about how we can curate our own feeds. If we make a conscious effort as media consumers, social media consumers, to fill our social media feeds with body positive messages and body positive images, and we encourage, and for those in the fitness community to encourage their clients to do that, I think could make a big impact, especially if as you said, Dallas, you're hearing directly from clients who are using it in maybe sometimes in a not so healthy way. So I think that given the prevalence of social media now, that's a really interesting strategy for change. And I do want to shift towards talking about solutions here and what can we actually do to bring about some change that has a real impact. What are some feasible changes that fitness professionals can implement in their day-to-day work, and then maybe even thinking longer term, bigger picture? Dallas, how do you establish that positive relationship with your clients, and what are some ideas that you have as far as creating change within the industry?
A lot of developing a positive relationship goes back to the language that you use with them. And so kind of as far as redirecting clients away from negative thinking and changing the conversation in the fitness industry and making people feel more comfortable, something that I found is very important is keeping the conversation positive. They're not talking about flaws with the body, but talking about what you can do and what you'd like to be able to do. Making fitness more about accomplishing things and not about losing pounds has been very, very important. Not just because it puts a more positive spin on their goals and makes them feel better about themselves, but also because you establish yourself as a professional as not being judgmental. And non-judgmentality has been extremely important in my growth as a personal trainer. I find, or I found, oftentimes when I introduce myself and people ask me what I'm doing, and I tell them that I'm a personal trainer, they almost go on the defensive, thinking that I'm judging them for what they're eating or for how they exercise, and they say, well, I don't eat this every day, and they kind of make a joke out of it. But I prefer that people feel comfortable sharing with me. And that's true of any health professional. You're going to be able to help them the most if they feel comfortable sharing with you. If you're concerned that one of your clients might have an eating disorder or might be developing certain unhealthy habits, the only way you're really going to be able to find out about them is if they really feel comfortable sharing their new habits with you. And so just keeping the positive language around and making sure that you're not being judgmental when they do ask you things or tell you about things that they're doing is extremely important. Avoiding confrontation is essential because if you tell them something that they don't want to hear and you do it in an argumentative way, you're doing more harm in the long run than you are good because they won't value your opinion as much, or at least that's been my experience. They won't feel comfortable asking you questions and won't come to you for your opinion on things. And when you do finally feel that you might need to have a conversation with someone about behaviors that are concerning you, having established that rapport by being non-judgmental over a long period of time can really, really play a big role.
Great points, Dallas. And Stacy, how about you? What are your ideas about solutions here and creating change, both as an individual fitness professional, and then thinking about the industry in general? What are some of the big picture changes that you would like to see?
Well, the good news is there is a lot to do, but I think it's fairly doable. These things aren't that hard to implement. I think we just have to want to do them. Like I said before, I'm a big proponent of the health at every size approach. So I would love to see fitness professionals focusing more on indices of health and fitness rather than weight. I would love us to be talking about and examining and correcting fat talk and language that perpetuates disordered eating. Um, I think that coaches and fitness professionals definitely need more education on eating disorders. And I think they have to tread lightly when prescribing diets to clients. I see a lot of people that end up in my practice, people with eating disorders, who start their story with something like, well, it all started when I went to see a personal trainer and that trainer put me on a fairly restrictive diet. So I think we need to take a look at this. And then also, I think it is really helpful, and when I teach, I try to do this myself, to engage in what I call body positive cueing. So when working as a trainer or as a group fitness instructor, instead of using cues that focus on calorie burning and weight loss, to use more positive cues that focus on strength and power and fun. I think that this can have a huge impact.
Those are wonderful suggestions, Stacy. Really, really appreciate that. And I think it's really, all of this kind of speaks to the importance of education. And I think that we need to really stress that and understand that eating disorders are very complex illnesses. We can't expect that every fitness trainer is going to understand all of the nuances of eating disorders, and that's one of the great things about having organizations. The National Eating Disorders Association has a lot of great resources, for trainers and anyone who wants information about eating disorders can visit our website at nationaleatingdisorders.org. But I think also just really having a willingness to approach these issues in a non-judgmental way, as you said, Dallas. That's really key, in that day-to-day interaction, and a shift away from this focus on weight and this obsession with dieting that is really, unfortunately, very much part of the industry right now. But I think, as professionals really understand how rampant eating disorders and disordered eating, not just people who have, diagnosed with eating disorders, but whose thoughts and behaviors surrounding food, weight, and body image are having an incredibly negative impact in their lives. And their approach to exercise is really informed by that negative approach. So really trying to shift in a positive direction and embrace this idea of education of fitness professionals and honoring the fact that you guys are really, as I said, you're on the front lines. You have a great opportunity to recognize these issues in clients and also to really shift the culture, the fitness culture. And, I think it's a really exciting opportunity, and I think the more we talk about this, the further we're going to get. As you said, Stacey, we have work to do, but we can get there, and I think it's important, a really, really important conversation. And I thank both of you so much for your really incredible contributions to this field and to this discussion today. I want to note again, Stacy has a really great book, which is a wonderful resource for anyone who's interested in this topic, but for fitness professionals who might want to learn more. It's called "Does Every Woman Have an Eating Disorder?" And also want to mention our website again, nationaleatingdisorders.org, for anyone who wants information. And there is also a really great resource specifically for fitness professionals. It's called Destructively Fit, and it is a training program on eating disorders for fitness professionals that's run by Jody Rubin, who's a professional in the eating disorders field. She's worked with Nita before, and if anyone wants more information about this program, it's destructivelyfit.com. And again, I want to thank both of you, Dallas, Stacey, for being part of this discussion. And we look forward to continued conversations. Thank you, everyone.